Have you ever wondered why some people command instant respect, while others, despite their best efforts, seem to repel it? Why do you find yourself constantly explaining, justifying, or proving your worth, only to watch others effortlessly receive the very acknowledgement you crave? Carl Jung, the pioneering Swiss psychiatrist who mapped the depths of human consciousness, discovered that respect isn't earned through what we do, but rather lost through what we unconsciously project. The harsh truth is that people don't respect you not because of your actions, but because of the invisible psychological patterns you're broadcasting to the world without even knowing it. Today, I'm going to reveal the 5 hidden psychological reasons why people don't respect you, based on Carl Jung's revolutionary insights into the human psyche. These aren't surface-level behavioral tips or quick fixes. These are profound truths about how your unconscious mind shapes every interaction you have, and how you can transform not just how others see you, but how you see yourself. By the end of this journey, you'll understand why respect has nothing to do with achievement and everything to do with psychological authenticity. The first reason people don't respect you lies in what Jung called shadow projection. Picture this. You're in a meeting, and there's someone who constantly interrupts others, speaks too loudly, and dominates every conversation. You find this person incredibly irritating, almost repulsive. You might even make subtle comments about their behavior to colleagues afterward. But here's what Jung discovered that will shake you to your core. The qualities we despise most in others are often the very qualities we refuse to acknowledge in ourselves. Your shadow, according to Jung, is the collection of all the parts of yourself that you've rejected, denied, or pushed into the unconscious because they don't align with how you want to see yourself. When you encounter these same qualities in others, you don't just dislike them, you have a visceral, almost violent reaction to them. This is shadow projection, and it's destroying your ability to command respect in ways you never imagined. When you constantly criticize, judge, or react strongly to certain behaviors in others, you're essentially wearing a sign that says, "I have unresolved issues with these exact same tendencies within myself." People sense this unconsciously. They feel your internal conflict, your lack of self-awareness, your refusal to own your complete self. And unconsciously, they lose respect for you because authentic power comes from integration, not denial. Think of someone you know who commands natural respect. Notice how they respond to difficult people or challenging behaviors. They don't react with judgment or criticism. They remain centered, sometimes even compassionate, because they've made peace with these same tendencies within themselves. They've integrated their shadow. Jung called this process individuation, and it's the foundation of all genuine respect. The consequence of shadow projection is that you become a walking advertisement of your own unconscious conflicts. Every judgment you make, every strong reaction you have to others, reveals exactly where you haven't done your inner work. People unconsciously sense this and interpret it as weakness, as a lack of self-knowledge, as someone who isn't fully integrated or authentic. The second reason people don't respect you is what Jung identified as the inferior function. Jung discovered that every person has 4 primary psychological functions: thinking, feeling, sensation, and intuition. Most people develop 1 or 2 of these functions well, but the others remain underdeveloped, primitive, and unconscious. This underdeveloped function becomes your Achilles heel, and people unconsciously sense it. Imagine someone who prides themselves on being highly logical and rational. They've developed their thinking function brilliantly. They can analyze, strategize, and problem solve with remarkable skill. But when faced with emotional situations, when someone is crying or expressing vulnerability, they become awkward, dismissive, or even cruel. Their feeling function is inferior, underdeveloped, and it shows. People lose respect for them not because they're too logical, but because they're incomplete as human beings. Or consider someone who's incredibly intuitive and creative. They can see patterns, possibilities, and potential that others miss entirely. But ask them to handle practical details, to organize their finances, or to complete routine tasks, and they fall apart completely. Their sensation function is inferior, and their inability to handle basic life requirements makes others unconsciously question their competence as a whole person. Jung understood that respect comes from psychological wholeness, not from being exceptional in one area while being incompetent in others. When your inferior function is completely unconscious and undeveloped, you become predictably unreliable in certain situations. People learn that they can't count on you as a complete person, and respect erodes. The most damaging part is that people often overcompensate for their inferior function in ways that make them appear arrogant or dismissive. The overly logical person might mock emotional intelligence as weakness. The highly intuitive person might dismiss practical concerns as boring or beneath them. This overcompensation broadcasts insecurity rather than strength, and people lose respect accordingly. The third reason people don't respect you emerges from what Jung called the persona trap. Your persona is the mask you wear in social situations, the carefully constructed image you present to the world. Everyone has a persona, and it's not inherently problematic. The issue arises when you become so identified with your persona that you lose touch with your authentic self underneath. Consider someone who has built their entire identity around being the nice person. They never say no, never express disagreement, never show anger or frustration. On the surface, this might seem admirable, but Jung discovered that when persona becomes too rigid, it creates a profound psychological split. The person becomes a performer rather than a human being, and people unconsciously sense this lack of authenticity. What happens to all that unexpressed anger, frustration, and disagreement? It doesn't disappear. According to Jung, it gets pushed into the shadow, where it festers and eventually emerges in unconscious ways. The overly nice person might become passive-aggressive, manipulative, or suddenly explode in ways that seem completely out of character. People lose respect because they sense the incongruence, the lack of integration between the presented self and the authentic self. The persona trap is particularly insidious because our culture often rewards certain personas. The perpetual optimist, the tireless worker, the selfless caregiver, the confident leader, these are all socially praised personas. But when someone becomes completely identified with these roles, they lose access to their full humanity. They become predictable, one-dimensional, and ultimately boring. Jung understood that people are unconsciously drawn to wholeness, to individuals who can access their full range of human experiences and expressions. Real respect comes from authentic presence, not from maintaining a perfect image. When you're trapped in persona identification, you're essentially asking people to respect a character you're playing rather than the person you actually are. And on some level, everyone can sense the difference. The fourth reason people don't respect you involves what Jung called the anima and animus, the contrasexual aspects of your personality that exist in your unconscious. Every man carries within his unconscious a feminine aspect, the anima, and every woman carries within her unconscious a masculine aspect, the animus. When these contrasexual elements remain completely unconscious and unintegrated, they create profound respect problems in ways most people never understand. For men, an unintegrated anima often manifests as emotional volatility, moodiness, or an inability to access genuine feeling. The man might seem strong and competent on the surface, but when faced with situations requiring emotional intelligence, empathy, or relational skills, he becomes suddenly childish or even cruel. He might make cutting remarks, become sulky when he doesn't get his way, or display what Jung called anima possession, where he becomes overwhelmed by emotions he can't understand or control. People lose respect for such men, not because they show emotion, but because they show unintegrated emotion. There's a profound difference between a man who has conscious access to his feeling nature and one who is periodically hijacked by unconscious emotional reactions. The integrated man can be strong and gentle, logical and empathetic, decisive and receptive. The unintegrated man swings between rigid control and emotional chaos. For women, an unintegrated animus often manifests as harsh criticism, dogmatic opinions, or an inability to access genuine personal authority. The woman might seem agreeable and accommodating most of the time, but when her animus is activated, she becomes argumentative, inflexible, or destructively critical. She might tear down others with intellectual arguments that feel more like attacks than discussions. Or she might become possessed by opinions that don't even feel like her own. People lose respect for such women, not because they're strong or opinionated, but because they're not consciously choosing their strength. There's a difference between a woman who has integrated her masculine nature and one who is occasionally possessed by it. The integrated woman can be receptive and assertive, collaborative and independent, gentle and powerful. The unintegrated woman alternates between submission and aggression. Jung discovered that respect flows naturally toward those who have achieved some degree of psychological androgyny, the conscious integration of both masculine and feminine qualities within themselves. Such individuals don't lose themselves in relationships or become tyrants in leadership. They can adapt their energy to what the situation requires while remaining fundamentally grounded in their authentic self. The fifth and most profound reason people don't respect you lies in what Jung called the unlived life. This is perhaps the most tragic of all psychological patterns, and it's epidemic in our modern world. Your unlived life consists of all the potentials within you that remain unexpressed, all the dreams you've abandoned, all the aspects of yourself you've sacrificed for safety, approval, or conventional success. Jung observed that people who are living someone else's life, who have chosen security over authenticity, who have abandoned their genuine calling for practical considerations, carry within them a profound sense of resentment and regret. This unlived life doesn't disappear. It becomes a haunting presence within the psyche, creating what Jung called a neurosis of meaninglessness. When you're living an unlived life, people sense your fundamental disconnection from your own authenticity. You might be successful by conventional measures, you might have all the external markers of achievement, but there's something missing. People unconsciously pick up on your internal emptiness, your lack of genuine vitality, your disconnection from your own soul's purpose. Consider someone who always wanted to be an artist, but became an accountant for financial security. On the surface, they might seem responsible and practical, but underneath, there's a chronic resentment, a sense of having betrayed themselves. This internal betrayal doesn't remain private. It influences every interaction, every relationship, every moment of their existence. They become someone who criticizes others for taking risks, who dismisses dreams as impractical, who unconsciously tries to pull others down into the same compromise they've made. People lose respect for such individuals, not because of their career choices, but because of their fundamental dishonesty with themselves. Jung understood that authenticity is the foundation of all genuine respect. When you're living in alignment with your true nature, when you're expressing your genuine gifts and following your authentic calling, you radiate a kind of energy that naturally commands respect. The unlived life creates what Jung called a provisional existence, where you're always waiting for your real life to begin someday. People sense this provisional quality, this sense that you're not fully committed to your own existence, and they unconsciously respond with a lack of commitment to respecting you. But here's where this understanding becomes transformational rather than merely diagnostic. Jung didn't reveal these patterns to discourage you, but to liberate you. Each of these respect-destroying patterns contains within it the seeds of its own transformation. Before we continue, I want you to pause for a moment and honestly assess which of these patterns resonates most deeply with you. Are you caught in shadow projection, constantly triggered by qualities in others that you haven't integrated within yourself? Are you trapped in persona identification, so focused on maintaining your image that you've lost touch with your authentic self? Have you failed to integrate your contrasexual nature, leading to unconscious emotional reactions or expressions of strength that feel forced rather than genuine? Or are you living an unlived life, going through the motions of existence while your authentic self remains locked away? If you're finding value in this deep psychological exploration, if these insights are helping you understand yourself in new ways, I encourage you to subscribe to this channel and share this video with others who might benefit from this knowledge. True transformation happens not in isolation, but in community, and your willingness to explore these depths is already a sign of your readiness to reclaim the respect you deserve. Now let's explore the most dangerous pattern of all, the one that underlies all the others and represents the greatest threat to your ability to command genuine respect. Jung called this the unconscious identification with the collective. In our modern world, most people have lost touch with their individual nature entirely. They've become so identified with collective values, social media expectations, cultural norms, and groupthink that they no longer know who they are beneath all these layers of conditioning. They've become what Jung called mass men, individuals who have surrendered their psychological sovereignty to the collective unconscious. When you're unconsciously identified with the collective, you become predictable, replaceable, and ultimately forgettable. You parrot the opinions you're supposed to have, you pursue the goals you're supposed to pursue, you express the emotions you're supposed to express. You become a social media version of a human being rather than an actual human being. People don't respect mass men because there's nothing unique to respect. You've become interchangeable with thousands of others who have made the same psychological compromise. You've traded your individuality for belonging, your authenticity for approval, your genuine self for social acceptability. Jung understood that respect flows toward individuals, toward people who have done the work of differentiation, who have separated themselves psychologically from the collective and discovered their own unique essence. This doesn't mean becoming antisocial or rebellious for the sake of rebellion. It means developing what Jung called conscious relationship to the collective, where you can participate in social life without losing yourself in it. The most profound disrespect you can show yourself is to live as though your individual nature doesn't matter, as though you're just another interchangeable unit in the social machinery. When you do this, you're essentially asking others to respect something that isn't even there, a persona without a person, a social role without an individual occupying it. But here's the revelation that changes everything. Respect isn't something you earn from others. It's something that flows naturally from your own psychological integration. When you've done the work of individuation, when you've integrated your shadow, developed your inferior function, balanced your persona with authenticity, integrated your contrasexual nature, and begun living your authentic life rather than the life others expect of you, respect becomes inevitable. Jung discovered that when a person achieves even a modest degree of psychological wholeness, they radiate what he called numinous energy. People are unconsciously drawn to individuals who have done their inner work, who have achieved some measure of self-knowledge and self-acceptance. Such individuals don't demand respect, they simply embody it. Think of the people in your life who naturally command respect. Notice that they don't try to impress you, they don't constantly explain themselves, they don't seek approval or validation, they simply are who they are, fully and unapologetically. They've integrated enough of their shadow that they don't judge others harshly. They've developed enough of their inferior function that they're reliable as complete human beings. They haven't lost themselves in their persona or in collective expectations. They've integrated their contrasexual nature enough to access their full range of human capacities. And most importantly, they're living their authentic life rather than the life others expect of them. This is what Jung meant by individuation, the process of becoming who you really are rather than who others need you to be. It's not a selfish process, it's actually the most generous thing you can do for the world. When you become authentically yourself, you give others permission to do the same. You become a catalyst for authenticity rather than conformity. The journey towards psychological respect begins with brutal honesty about these patterns within yourself. It requires the courage to see your shadow projections, to recognize where you've trapped yourself in persona identification, to acknowledge your underdeveloped psychological functions, to integrate your contrasexual nature, and most importantly, to begin living the life that's authentically yours rather than the one that's socially acceptable. This isn't work that happens overnight. Jung understood individuation as the central task of the second half of life, a process that can take decades to unfold. But even beginning this journey, even taking the first steps towards psychological integration, immediately begins to shift how others respond to you. When you stop projecting your shadow onto others, people sense your increased self-awareness and respond with respect for your psychological maturity. When you begin developing your inferior function, people sense your growing completeness as a human being and trust you more fully. When you balance your persona with authenticity, people respond to your genuine presence rather than your performed image. When you integrate your contrasexual nature, people sense your psychological balance and are naturally drawn to your wholeness. And when you begin living your authentic life, people sense your vitality and purpose and naturally want to support your journey. But perhaps most importantly, as you do this work, you begin to respect yourself in ways you never have before. You stop seeking validation from others because you're developing genuine self-knowledge. You stop needing others to see you a certain way because you're beginning to see yourself clearly. You stop being triggered by others' opinions because you're developing genuine self-acceptance. Jung understood that the respect we receive from others is always a reflection of the respect we have for ourselves. Not the superficial self-esteem our culture promotes, but the deep self-respect that comes from living in alignment with your authentic nature, from having the courage to be who you really are in a world that's constantly trying to make you someone else. The ultimate irony is that when you stop caring about whether others respect you and start focusing on becoming psychologically whole, respect begins to flow toward you naturally. People are unconsciously hungry for authenticity in a world full of personas, for integration in a world full of fragmentation, for individuals in a world full of mass conformity. As we conclude this exploration, I want you to understand that everything I've shared with you today isn't just psychological theory, it's a practical roadmap for transformation. The patterns that destroy respect aren't permanent character flaws. They're simply areas where you haven't yet done your inner work. And the beautiful truth is that this work is always available to you. In every moment, in every interaction, in every choice you make between authenticity and conformity, your journey toward commanding genuine respect begins not with changing how you act, but with discovering who you really are beneath all the layers of conditioning, expectation, and compromise. It begins with the courage to face your shadow, to develop your unlived potentials, to integrate your rejected aspects, and to begin living from your authentic center rather than from your social conditioning. Jung believed that every individual has within them what he called the self, a center of psychological wholeness that transcends both ego and persona. When you begin to live from this deeper center, respect becomes not something you seek from others, but something that naturally radiates from your integrated being. The question isn't whether you deserve respect. The question is whether you're willing to do the work necessary to become someone who embodies it. Are you ready to face your shadow projections and reclaim the power you've been giving away through unconscious judgment? Are you ready to develop your inferior functions and become a more complete human being? Are you ready to balance your persona with authenticity and let people see who you really are? Are you ready to integrate your contrasexual nature and access your full range of human capacities? And most importantly, are you ready to begin living your authentic life rather than the life others expect of you? This is the path Jung illuminated, the journey from psychological fragmentation to wholeness, from unconscious reactivity to conscious choice, from seeking respect to embodying it. Your willingness to undertake this journey isn't just about transforming how others see you, it's about discovering and becoming who you've always been meant to be. The respect you seek from others is waiting for you, but it lies not in changing your external behavior, but in integrating your internal world. It lies not in becoming someone different, but in becoming more authentically yourself. And that journey, that sacred work of individuation, is the most respectful thing you can do, not just for yourself, but for everyone whose life you touch.